the mindset, like I don't have to switch gears between, okay, now I'm in adjusting mode and now I'm in x-ray review mode and now I'm in care recommendation mode. Instead, it's okay, I got 4 of these back to back. I got a 2-hour block. I'm sitting at home in front of my computer, have my water, have all my stuff. And I'm like, sometimes I'm like in my pajamas doing it. I mean, I'll wear like a collared shirt from the waist up so they don't know, but,
Zoom uniform.
I just roll through it. And, yeah, I mean, it works quite a bit better.
This special session of Power Hour, we have 2 very special guest speakers. We have our longtime member, Dr. Todd Pickman, and his very special office manager who does so much more, Danny Oberg. And they're going to be sharing with us today how they've been successfully doing virtual report of findings, so day 2 and day 3s, for the last few years. I'm going to turn this over first to our founder and CEO, Dr. Miles Bodson.
Hey, Holly. Hey, guys. Good to see you all. Here we are for another Power Hour. I know, Todd, you just flew in from Hawaii. Holly, you and I just got back from Parker, Vegas. We've all been traveling around, and I am thrilled to be back in our home office, ready to share with our members some great content here. And I got to tell you, let me give a little background, because it isn't every day that we have another doctor come on to share with you guys. Usually, these Power Hours, it's the Holly and Miles show typically. And but I got to share with you this, and that is Todd and I have been friends for a long time. Todd not only is a member of Cash Practice for probably a decade plus, but we've also been friends. I've been to his office out in Idaho, and Todd recently and I were having a conversation. We get together every so often and chat about things, and he shared a concept that he didn't come to us saying, "Hey, I want to teach this to your members." But I heard what he was doing, and I said, "Holy crap, our members need to hear about this," because I mean, I'm all about efficiency. I'm all about doing things better and smarter and more profitable and more efficient. I mean, that's why we do software. Software is all about creating efficiencies. And when Todd shared with me how he was not just using the software, but the way he was systematizing in his practice, I was like, my head blew up. I was like, oh my God, if I was still practicing, I would 100% follow what Todd's about to teach you guys today and implement it in my own practice. So I said, Todd, we got to have you on and I want you to share. And this is an opportunity for you guys to ask questions, hear about it. I know the title was sitting about, a virtual report of findings. I thought a sexy title might have been, getting patients to say yes from the comfort of your sofa, something like that, where you're like, that's like, you're sitting at home and you're doing your job and you're enrolling patients in care without, just like we're sitting right now. Some of you are sitting in your offices. If you turn on your cameras, I know you were at, but I'm at my home office. Holly, you're at your home office. Todd, I'm not sure if you're at a home office.
Yep.
You're at home. Danny, I'm guessing you're at home. I'm guessing you're at home as well right now. Many of us are working from home at these moments, and it's quite frankly very nice for a lot of us. And Todd, you figured out how to do something that generally requires us to be in the office, but from a remote location. So for those of you who don't know, Dr. Todd Pickman not only runs an incredible practice in Idaho, he's also the founder of Move Now University, which is a great program for building out, rehab and a whole form of type of practice. Todd, I want to turn it over to you. I know you regularly do a podcast. That's why you can see you're in your studio right now. And I just want to start off let's start with this. I'm going to ask you a question, but feel free to kind of just rip with this, because
Sure.
I'm not even quite sure where we're going with this at the moment. I just wanted to say this, is that I know that when we spoke, you shared, obviously we just got out of the pandemic. We went through COVID and all this stuff that went on. And that was, if I'm not mistaken, the genesis of why you even started doing this. And like a lot of things, we all started doing things a little differently, and maybe it worked better and we just kept with it. So Todd, let's just start with this. Where did this all start, and kind of give an overall picture? And then I'm pretty sure you have a kind of a message you want to share with everybody.
Sure. Yep. Absolutely. Well, thanks guys for having me on. And yes, we've known each other for a long time. We've covered a lot of cool stuff. And at the end of this, I'll let you guys know just up front, I don't have this formally put together to be able to say, okay, here's a program we have that's turnkey, ready to go to learn how to do virtual appointments. I started building it a couple months ago, and we are going to gauge interest today. And if there's interest for us to finish putting this thing together, Danny and I, so Danny on here, that's on this side, Danny and I are going to record a ton more videos to teach all the step-by-step process. So I'll give that disclaimer right now. So at the end of it, what we'll have is just simply, Danny's going to put her phone number on the screen. You can text her and just say, hey, I'm interested. And then we'll reach out to you once we have something put together. But with that said, why did we put this together? It was not actually pandemic related necessarily or inspired. It was kind of like that was the justification for doing it, because everyone was in the mindset of being okay with doing Zoom appointments. Okay. So meaning my main motivation was I wanted to be in the clinic less. So how do I do that? Well, I either see less patients, I do less stuff in the office and be more efficient. And that's kind of what we did. Is that second option there was hours in the office. I wanted to focus on seeing patients, and I didn't want to take these 20, 30-minute slots to go through these in-depth reports and use up precious clinic time that I could be adjusting patients. And then also in our practice, since we do a lot of corrective rehab, we have a lot of other staff that are there ready to work and ready to take care of patients. And if I'm in the room with someone for 20 or 30 minutes talking to them about something, then, at times they might be twiddling their thumbs, kind of waiting for patients to come out and start going through all these different pieces that we have set up in our clinic. So Danny and I mapped out probably 2 years ago my goal of backing out of the clinic and being in there for less hours. And it wasn't working out. Like all the numbers we were figuring out, it was just no way I was going to be able to maintain it unless I saw dramatically less patients in office. So the solution was, what if I could take all of these time-intensive appointments, which is day 2 and day 3, and not do those during patient hours? And so that's where this whole thing was born. And then we said, well, people are already in the mindset of being okay with doing stuff through Zoom because everyone else is doing it. So we might as well capitalize on that at that moment. And so we started dipping our toe in and testing the waters. And I didn't know how people would respond. I didn't know if patients would think it was, too impersonal, or, if it was something that wouldn't connect with them as much, like doing it in person. And the interesting thing is I found quite the opposite, that people actually feel like this is more intimate. It's more one-on-one. They are tickled pink that the doctor is going to put 20, 30 minutes aside to meet with them on Zoom, just one-on-one. And so that's how I've been doing it now. And I put together just a few slides to kind of track going through and making sure I don't miss anything here. Yep.
Todd, I'm going to raise my hand to ask a question. And I think, Wendy, maybe your hand went up too. No, okay. So my question for you immediately is that I know one of the things I've always taught, and I'm not alone in teaching this, but I've always made it a point to say it's great to get a spouse or a significant other at a report of findings. And we'd go through all this stuff on a day 1 about how you invite the spouse and how you get them there. I don't know whether that's something that's been important in your practice.
Oh, for sure.
If it has, have you had more success in significant others either participating live in the Zoom, or at least that's being recorded and they see it after the fact? Because we all know it's really powerful to have a significant other part of that report of findings. And that's one of the things that struck me, is like it almost feel to me initially, that's what I want to ask you, eliminates that rigmarole we have to go through of getting them to participate. Absolutely.
So not only does it make it much easier to do these appointments and have spouse attendance, something that I was struggling with, which I'm sure a lot of the other clinics here can also agree on, is that if you have a policy in your clinic where you say, look, I'm going to be hardcore, and the only time I'm going to do these report of findings is if your spouse is with you. That's something that at one point in some practice management stuff, I was taught to really, really stress that. That oftentimes pushes that appointment several days later on the calendar, because you have to find a time that both people can physically attend in person. That was a challenge. On the flip side, doing them virtually, most of the times that I do these, some mornings I start at 6:45 a.m. So 6:45 a.m., I'm in front of my computer, and then every 30 minutes back to back, I'll usually do 4 in a row, sometimes 5 in a row. And it'll be patients that are doing day 2, so like x-ray review, or day 3, which is going through their financial and their care plan recommendations. And so literally for the last almost 2 years, I think I've had 1 or 2 that I've done in person. And it's usually someone that is just so untech savvy that they don't know anything about anything. And it's a struggle to try to get them to click on a Zoom link.
Right.
So like those, I'm like, okay, you know what? We've tried everything. This is taking so much energy. Try to get them on Zoom. I'll just come in person and do it. And then when I do it in person, I look to my assistant, Jenna, and I'm like, I remember why I don't like doing these in person. Because it's just so much better doing it now in this process of how I've put it together. And yeah, I have done hundreds of them.
So let me ask you this, now that you've been doing this, and I know you're going to get into like the mechanics of all this and kind of teach people some strategy here, but I want to kind of jump to the end. And that is, all right, so now we see it's easier to get a spouse there. That's what you're saying. And I would agree. I mean, without even doing these, I would think that's 100% going to be the case. Totally. Second is, and you already said it feels intimate, even though you thought it was a fear that it wouldn't be. So it feels like you're getting that one-on-one time, which I totally get because you have total eye contact. There's no interruptions, all of that stuff. Third is, I'm going to guess you record these so they have a record of it for them to go back and show it and, review it themselves. But the last thing I want to ask is, well, I don't know if it's the last thing, but the next thing I want to ask, and that is have you seen a measured improvement in outcome? Meaning, have you seen greater success in enrolling people relative to, like, at the end of the day, if in person you've enrolled 8 out of 10, but here you're doing 9 out of 10, like what is your success rate in enrolling people in care versus live?
I would say it's significantly better from doing it virtually than before. Now, there were months in the past that Danny and I tracked this and looked at it, and there was a couple months where we literally had 100% conversion. So every single person that got on a virtual committed to care. In some cases, it wasn't the ultimate best care plan recommendation, but it was something. But there's been months where we've done 100% where people commit to care. And I think that's because, like, in person, when you do it and you got 5 people in your waiting room waiting and you're covering x-rays or you're covering something and there's some kind of objection or question, as a doctor, I felt rushed. And when you feel rushed and you're trying to play it cool, the patient feels rushed. And now you don't handle that objection. They walk out the door and you have all these other patients waiting to be seen after that. And it kind of moves out of your mind. And in doing them virtually, not only are you spending that time with them, and sometimes people do need that time, but the mindset, like, I don't have to switch gears between, okay, now I'm in adjusting mode, and now I'm in x-ray review mode, and now I'm in care recommendation mode. Instead, it's, okay, I got 4 of these back to back. I got a 2-hour block. I'm sitting at home in front of my computer, have my water, have all my stuff. And I'm like, sometimes I'm like in my pajamas doing it. I mean, I'll wear like a collared shirt from the waist up so they don't know, but the Zoom uniform. I just roll through it. And yeah, I mean, it works quite a bit better. I'm seeing some comments there. Are there any questions or?
There's no questions yet. People are digging the content and giving.
Okay, cool.
It's just a new concept. Like it's what I'm getting at. That's what kind of that excited me about this. It's like, I haven't heard this in our profession before. A lot of ideas are just repeated ideas and just repackaged ideas. But the fact is, and just a little background, Todd and I, the way we first met, besides him being a member, is we're both very systems oriented, very thinking about the most efficient way of doing it. And we had many conversations about how to do things in a very efficient. And I hadn't heard this before. So this is what got me excited about it. You really kind of, in my opinion, innovated, at least in the chiropractic world. Of course, there's been many doctors doing Zoom calls because nothing they do is physically hands-on with patients. But as chiropractors being physically hands-on, it becomes like, well, what can we do remote? And in essence, that's what you're kind of sharing here. So
like literally, I told you I just got back from Hawaii. I was in Hawaii. So I had a 6-day family getaway, and Saturday morning I did a Zoom call from Hawaii going over x-rays with a new patient that my associate doctor started for me when I was gone. And so she thought it was so cool because I'm taking time in the morning, and it was like 30 minutes in the morning, and I went over into the lobby and I have like ocean in the background, and I jumped on Zoom with her, and she thought that was awesome. And she'll probably never forget that. And on the same note, the cool thing is I was still able to connect with that person. I've never met her before in person. And I'm going to see her. I think I'm seeing her tomorrow when I'm back.
Do you think there's any psychological thing going on with the patient where you seem much more important because of the fact that it's hard to see you in person? Do you think there's like this skip? When people have something like it's difficult to see that person, I don't mean it's difficult to see you, but I don't know. There's a sense like this, like I don't know if you're picking up what I'm saying, but
I think just having uninterrupted time and knowing that that time is reserved for that person, I think that tells them that we value them. We feel like they're important. We take this seriously. And many times I've talked to people and I've gotten that type of feedback from them where they say, wow, this is so cool that you do this. Like this is the first time I've ever had a doctor that's gotten on with me and like taken the time to do this. And so like on one end, I'm not saying to jump on Zoom with them and spend an hour and a half, 30 minutes does, in some circles, they say, oh my gosh, that's way too much time. Well, I'll tell you, I feel like we connect really well with our patients. They commit to care and they understand how this thing works. And at least in our practice, how we practice, we have many moving parts. It's something that we want to educate them on the process and really get them to understand why we're prescribing what we're prescribing for them. Because it's, chiropractic, functional movement, curve correction, all this stuff is happening together. It's like 3 clinics in one. It's not something that you can really explain to someone in 5 or 10 minutes.
So let me ask you this. Let's go through now some of the mechanics. Like if someone on here right now is saying, all right, give me an idea of how does this work? Like,
sure.
From the standpoint, so like step 1, this, step 2, step 3, I'm going to guess you have some slides around this whole world. So give the viewer some sense of like, if they wanted to start experimenting with this stuff, what do they do?
Yeah, let me go to the first slide here. Okay, everyone close your eyes so you don't see it. Okay, ready. Okay, good. We're good. All right. Okay. I thought I was going to skip and show all the things I was going to pull out. Okay, so I made this slide yesterday at the airport with no Wi-Fi. Okay, so just to give you a heads up on that. But virtual appointments. All right, let's get this going. 602 days and counting. I was curious how long we've been doing this for. So I went back and I was going to like try to actually count on the calendar. Fortunately, I found out that there's this app that allows you to put in dates and it tells you how many days in between. And so this is me and this is Danny who's on here. And this is this cool little thing online that you can find how many days are between the 2 dates. The first day we did this was Tuesday, July 6, 2021. All right, so we've been doing this for a while now. So I've done hundreds and hundreds of these. Some of the talking points though, and I know we've already talked about this a little bit in the intro, but increasing patient volume in the clinic. So if you're doing a 20, 30 minute appointment in office, how many patients could you adjust in that time? So if you can pull that out of clinic time, do that on a different time, which most of the times I do this, like I said, early in the morning. I wake up at 4:30 in the morning. Usually I'll go to the gym. I get back from the gym. When I'm home from the gym, I'll do 2 of these, take my son to school, come home, do 2 more, and then get ready. And then I go to the clinic. And it works out great. And I love it. Best utilize clinic working hours for patient adjusting time. And then at home comfort to offset clinic hours and maximize patient attention and engagement. All stuff that we talked about. Increasing the spouse attendance to eliminate objections. If the spouse isn't there, then we do send them a link to the video. And there's a very standard email that the second I jump off of this with them, or if I have 4 in a row, I might do all these emails at the end of the 4. But I send over all the stuff that we covered with them. And then we also send them a private link through Vimeo. So we essentially upload that Zoom video, give them a private link that only they can view, and then they can watch that video after the fact. And when they do watch it, it sends me an email notification that they clicked on it and then they watched it. So if they're going to share it with a spouse, I also see that they have shared it with a spouse.
I want to just clarify again, just from a technical standpoint, when you say you upload to Vimeo and it's private, just so everybody aware, that means it's password protected. So it's not a public video. It's a video only for them to be able to view it themselves.
Yep.
It's really smart. So they have a place to go back and engage with that.
And then something I didn't put up as far as a picture, I meant to, and I was texting Danny yesterday, and she's awesome because even, on a Monday late at night, she's sending me over documents and stuff so I can get this ready. I couldn't get the internet working yesterday on my computer, but anyway, so she sent me over a form that we actually have our patients sign before they even schedule for this, which basically is giving permission for us to send these records and things over to them, and them understanding that, we're sending it via email and we're going to get on this Zoom link, and that they're okay with us covering this information through those platforms. All right. So what is this? We talked about it. We meet patients on Zoom for non-treatment appointments. For for BROFs and FROFs. BROFs and FROFs is what we call them: brief report of findings, which is like X-ray report of findings, and then formal report of findings or financial report of findings, which is like for us, it's a day 2, day 3. So for those of you out there that do a 3-day system, we do technically a 5-day system, but our first 3 days, which I'm going to show you on a little flow chart here, covers this process. BROF is day 2, FROF is day 3. So I say that right here. All right. And then how this is born, we already talked about that. And then how it flows, that's where I'm going to jump into a really awesome platform. If you guys ever want to know how to make the coolest flow charts ever, it's called Lucid Charts.
See, I told you it's all about systematizing things, procedural. Todd is the master of this stuff, of like really giving you a clear guideline, protocol, I guess you would say, to follow things. So if you work with Todd in any way in the future, you'll see everything is really laid out nicely.
Awesome. So here's just a bird's eye view of everything. And there's a lot of things going on. I'm going to run through this step by step. I'm going to go somewhat quick. If anyone has questions along the way, you want me to slow down, please just jump in, ask your question, and I'll explain it in more detail. Again, I've done this so many times that I'm trying not to forget that this flow might be a unique situation to those that are joining us. So in-office visit number 1, day 1, patient comes in as a new patient. Okay, we do consult, exam, and x-ray. And then if they're acute, we adjust them. And then they go to the checkout process. And at that checkout process at the front desk, they're scheduling their in-office visit, but they're also scheduling their virtual BROF. So they're scheduling the x-ray review on day 1 at the front desk. I am already mentioning that to them when we're doing the exam and getting their permission, which 99.9% of the time they say they're fine with that. And I basically say it like this. I say, Mary, so following today's visit, what we're going to do is analyze your x-rays. I'm going to go through them in detail. And then something I've been doing for the last couple of years, and it's worked great, I think you're going to love it, is then what we'll do is schedule a time for us to meet on Zoom. And then on Zoom, I'm going to block out time to go through those x-rays with you in detail. It's perfect time for you and your husband, John, to jump on as well. If for some reason he can't join, I'll send you a link and he can watch it after the fact. Patients absolutely love it. And then they're like, oh, wow, that sounds cool. Right.
You know, Todd, as you say this, I often talk about back in the day in practice, one of the things I did is I interviewed patients about why they were patient, why they were still with me after hundreds of visits. And one of the most common words I heard from dozens of people was the word convenience. That word came up over and over and over, whether it had to do with payments that we were doing or the way we scheduled. And what you've just done is you've capitalized on that value. That value they place tremendous value in our practice around convenience. And what you've just really kind of this is around that world, is that, and one of the things we learned is that if you had lots of inconveniences in your practice, it destroyed retention. It absolutely destroyed it. And so in order to improve retention, which is, again, something we always teach about, you want to build conveniences in your practice. And that's in essence what you've done here.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. All right. So then this point here, when we schedule the virtual BROF, this is just talking about the mechanics of how do we do it. We use Calendly. So for those of you out there that have your cameras on, which I know is like 1% of you, you could raise your hand if you use Calendly. Right? Calendly. And so how that works, the front desk can look at my calendar. They can see what appointments are available. And then they put the patient in right there. And we have systems on this too, as far as double checking email and phone number, because it sends them a text message reminder, an email reminder, all those details I'm not going to get into, but we have them all covered. Like every possible thing that could go wrong with this process, we've experienced. And so we've built systems to get 5 steps ahead of it. So it runs super smooth. Okay. So that if you have 4 of these scheduled back to back and you're sitting at home ready to go, all 4 of those patients get the reminders, they have the links, they know how to get on, and they get on time, and it just flows smooth. Okay. So Calendly, they get a text message reminder and email. ClickFunnels link. So CF is ClickFunnels. Some of you might be familiar with ClickFunnels. My claim to fame, I was the 3rd chiropractor in the world to use ClickFunnels. Ooh. Okay. So ClickFunnels is how you build various pages and whatnot. I'll show you how we use ClickFunnels in this, because we also automate the process of them getting a baseline as far as understanding what they're looking at when we go through their x-rays. So we don't have to cover everything about x-ray. So they watch a 12-minute video before we jump on with them that talks about here's what we're going to talk about today. Here's what you're going to talk about when you meet with the doctor. And then it's me doing a video showing here's normal, here's abnormal, here's what that means. And then I'm even touching on here's different options of care of what some of our patients choose to do and other patients choose to do this. So it's already introducing them to different paths that they can go.
So all of the stuff you would normally repeat patient to patient to patient, you basically turn those into video messages. Correct. And they're delivered by their email, and they're supposed to watch all that stuff before you then go into the unique stuff with them.
And that's literally the first question I ask them when I jump on the Zoom call with them. I say, okay, Mary, so great. So before we get started, did you get an opportunity to watch the video that we sent to you going over x-ray analysis? Yep, I sure did. Okay, awesome. You have any questions on it before we get started? Nope. All right, let's go. And then we get started. And if they say no, then I handle that a little differently. I just say, oh, okay, well, listen, here's the reason we sent it to you. It's really important we do this. After we jump off, can I get your commitment that you can put some time aside to go in and watch that? Yes, because they have to know right from the beginning that these systems are put in place for a reason. It's not just to be ignored. And so it can't just be like, oh, no problem, that's okay. It's like,
right. You're kind of setting the tone right from the beginning as to, hey, I have my responsibilities, you have your responsibilities, and as long as we agree to honor our responsibilities, we'll have a good working relationship.
Absolutely.
It's not all on me, right? You got your part to, because we've talked about that also in regards to making sure, like, how do you prevent people from missing appointments? Like, you're setting the tone right from the beginning as to there's certain responsibilities, and the CA has their responsibility, et cetera.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. And then, to kind of future pace into that, in our clinic, the process that we do on it's day 5, right, Danny, that we do clinic objectives. Yeah. So day 5, we actually sit down and have a patient sign a form that talks about essentially how to be successful with care. And one of them talks about appointments and whatnot. And then if they falter from that, then we have a CTJ, which is a come to Jesus visit. And then that one, what we do is we come back and we're like, hey, remember when we went through this with you? Yeah. Whose signature is that? Oh yeah, that's yours. Okay. And then we kind of like playfully bring them back to it to be like, here's why we do this.
Right.
All right. So anyway, so here's how that works. This is what the front desk sees. They see my Calendly. They find times that work. They put the patient in. And then this is what the patient gets emailed over to them in ClickFunnels. So it's just a link that has a video embedded on it. This one can really be used anywhere. For the financial report for day 3, we have a video series that we send them, and it pretty much substitutes what we used to do in an in-office, in-person doctor's report. It's 5 videos that are 4 to 5 minutes each. So it's about a 20-25 minute process, but it's broken into videos. So it's called a patient interactive video. It feels interactive. They get sucked into the next one. They want to watch it. They get to click on each page going through these videos. I'll show you that one in a minute. That's something else that we designed, that we've been using, that we realize that when we help other clinics put this together, this is a part that we're going to have to help them put together as well, is them doing this video process as well.
So let me ask you, when you get to this place, and obviously this is all the educational component as part of like what you do in your practice for, like you said, you have a lot of things going on in your practice. But I also want to one of my jobs whenever I have another doctor on and hearing their stuff, I want the doctors on the call right now who, if you run just a simple straight chiropractic office, you can do all of this stuff. You don't necessarily have to do everything that Todd's doing. And I know how Todd operates. He doesn't leave any stone unturned for sure. But if those of you are like, oh, I don't want to be overwhelmed by this, just simply imagine your own. I want to just kind of paint a picture right now, because I think about it in my own personal, very simple practice. All I would simply do is, okay, the thing I normally do in person as a day 2, financial report, a clinical report of findings, a financial report, even without all these videos, if all I did was simply just sit down and book these appointments 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. in the morning, and I just had my 40 minute appointments, this mimicking exactly what I did in office without all this other stuff. Now, Todd's, like I said, he's made it super efficient. But even if you just repeated what you currently do, but in a Zoom format, that alone, I believe, is going to have a significant impact. Just the just from the standpoint of happiness in your life, simplicity in your life, organizing your time.
And I mean, truthfully, the whole reason that these videos even came into fruition, because at first I didn't do this, at first in person, I'd go through this with someone and I'd be like, man, I have 3 x-ray review appointments today. And I'm saying the same thing over and over again, as far as just explaining the basics. Wouldn't it be cool if I had a video? And so how this used to work is patients would watch this video in office before they would come into the room with us to go over the x-rays. And patients had no problem doing it. They liked it. And at first with that too, I'm like, ooh, I wonder if that's going to be weird. I wonder if patients are going to object to it. Very few people objected to it. It worked fine. Then when I moved this to the online format and doing it through Zoom, I'm like, all right, I already have that video. Let's just email it to them, And so that's how we've been doing it here. That's pretty much day 1. So now day 1, they're set up for the first virtual appointment. Okay. So now here's day 2. It all just jumped up on the screen immediately. I'm going to go through it one by one. So here's day 2. So day 2 technically is not day 2 in the office. This is virtual. Okay. So they've come in one time in office. Now you're meeting them second encounter. So virtual BROF. So how this works, the CA emails to the doctor. So they send this over to me. So this is what I get. I get all the stuff ready to go. I get a brief little history of what's going on, their primary complaints, x-rays, they're all marked up, and you can see these markings here. If some of you are familiar with it, this is marked in posture. So it's chiropractic biophysics and Gonstead stuff and all of that. However you practice, however you do this with your patients, that's how you're going to present this, obviously. And then even their insurance verification. So if the patient's health insurance, or if it's Chiro Health USA, or if it's personal injury, that's going to be relevant, because we're going to be touching on that on day 2. As far as the financial thing, we're trying to pull objections out so we can handle them before they become an objection, so we can get them to day 3, because day 3 is where we go through a game plan, right? So
Todd, real quick question for you. I know you and again, not to push Cash Practice, because everybody here is already a member of Cash Practice. That's not necessarily, but I just want to ask real quick, do you at this point show the wellness score? Because I know you use it. So wellness score is on the second virtual appointment. So that's on the FROF. And that's how I start on that appointment. Is I have the wellness score pull up on the screen, and I have their recommendation card, which is a document that we make, on the right. And they see their grade and they're like, oh my gosh, D-. And they'll say something before I even get into it. And then I'll explain, here's what this is. Here's the wellness score. And I run through it. Right.
And so, okay. So then this one, patient watches the BROF video. So this is what's sent to them. This is a little bit redundant from the previous thing. This is what's sent to them. They watched this prior. It covers x-rays, options of care, and, something that we cover. We cover going through their x-rays. We cover different options in care. So like after I cover this with them, I say to the patient, I say, okay, now that I just covered all of this stuff with you, how do you feel about this? And I'll just ask that question. And then I just shut up and I let them talk. And if I need to pull them along a little bit more, I'll say, how would you like me to take care of you? And then some people,
those are great questions. And I hope everybody picked up just now is that one of the biggest mistakes I've personally seen doctors do in report of findings is they vomit on the patient with a bunch of words. And then at the end, they're hoping they sign up, versus stopping along the way and asking open-ended questions like that. It's really powerful in your process to pause along the way, check in with the patient with a question, and see that you're moving in the right direction. You see that they're following along on the path that you're taking them.
Yeah. And I from experience, I would say, if no other question, you ask them, how do you feel about this? And then people just open up, and you hear all kinds of stuff that they haven't told you before. And then a lot of times they'll say something you didn't know about, and it impresses upon you, wow, this person is super, super committed to this. And, or they walk themselves through the same process, or they walk themselves through that process. And at the end of them talking out loud, they're like, yeah, I absolutely have to do this. I absolutely have to get this fixed, or they'll say, well, it depends, and you'll say, depends on time and money. Is that primarily, and then we start handling those objections right there, because we want to handle all the objections before we even get to day 3.
Right.
Meaning day 3 is not going to happen if there's a hang up on day 2. We don't go into day 3 with like, surprise, here's how long it takes and how much it costs. It's like all of that's touched on day 2. The patient's aware. Day 3 is just working out the details. They already know a range of time. They already know a range of what their financial investment is. All that stuff's covered on day 2. So day 3 is just super comfortable. Okay. So then we go through the stuff with them on the screen. So this is me going through it. You see in the upper right, I'm like wearing a beanie and a shirt, like, hey, I don't dress up for it. And so far it hasn't really hurt me, like I'll just wear whatever. And patients are, and they're wearing whatever. Sometimes I do this with patients and they're in their pajamas. Sometimes they're laying in their bed and they're on an iPad. It's just, sometimes they're in a car. They just dropped their kid off at school and they have their phone. And I say, well, it's not ideal to have your phone. You can turn the screen sideways and see it a little bigger. I'll record it, send it to you so you can watch it later if you like, and that's also too at the front desk. We're trying to pre-frame it so that patients hopefully have a big enough screen to see it. Sometimes it goes on a phone on their end. That's all they have. And it still works fine. So either way, I've found at the end of the day, even though I'm trying to control these variables, you do your best to control the variables. The outcome, though, is still usually really, really good. Okay. And then we email over the x-rays, the Zoom recording for the spouse. So that's done after that. Okay. So now in-office visit number 2, it says adjustment in MW3. That's kind of like our own internal code. It's called a Move Well 3. That's a movement assessment. It's something that we built. It's for those of you out there that do any functional movement or rehab, it's a derivative of the FMS and the SFMA. So it's about a 15-minute movement assessment we do. Over to the right there, those 2 forms, those are things that we designed as far as how to take someone through a movement assessment. It's really clinically something that we have to gather to be able to build out their recommendations to then even get to the next appointment, which is presenting recommendations, because part of it is their functional movement and their functional rehab as well. So let's get into the details here. All right, adjustment move all 3. That's what it looks like. And the patient comes into the office, they get adjusted, they do their movement assessment, and then they check out at the front desk just the same as before. And now we schedule the in-office visit number 3. So we always schedule their next visit. We never let them leave without scheduling their next in-office visit. So their next in-office visit scheduled, and we schedule the virtual FROF, which is the formal report of findings or the financial report of findings. But that's what we've always called it, the FROF. And so again, we use Calendly. We have a different link now in Calendly. So I have 2 setups in Calendly, and this is what all of you can do in Calendly. You set up 2. You set up one for BROF, you set up one for FROF. And then your staff clicks on the right one, they click on the link, they schedule these appointments for you. And then all the stuff is set up inside of Calendly. It links up with Zoom. And so like all the stuff, you set it up once and you just schedule them. It's fairly seamless.
I could speak to it. We use that at Cash Practice as well with all the meetings that we do. Like when Cash Practice members need to book a call, for example, a 10-minute call with their account manager or something, all of that, we do exactly the same thing. It's a Calendly and everything's automated in the background once it's set up with the Zoom links, and it can sync to your Google Calendar. Like it does everything. It's really, really a nice tool. Yeah.
And at some point, I'm sure there'll be a Cash Practice version of Calendly that'll be right? Maybe, right?
Like we'll stay in our lane. We're going to stay in our lane.
Okay.
No,
all right.
No promises.
All right. Okay. So then inside of those emails, it sends them a link to this as well. And it says prior to your online meeting with the doctor. Something that I'll do at the end, because I don't want to interrupt the flow of this. What I'll do at the end is briefly show you what those links look like, and I'll give you an idea of what the patient sees when they're watching those videos. Okay. And then if you'd like, anyone here as well, I can make those links available. You guys can click through them. You can watch the videos as well and see how we've put them together. It's the same link.
That's a great idea.
Patients, okay. So, all right. What's next? Okay. So now we got day 3. All right. So here's day 3, which is a virtual appointment. They've done 2 in-office visits at this point, and we're on to their second virtual. All right. So day 3, virtual FROF. So the CA emails to the doctor. So now there's another email that I have in my inbox, and many days I'll have 2 or 3 of these emails. Jenna is my assistant. Side note, to also see a little bit more of this, if you want to dive deeper on some of our systems, our YouTube channel is called Move Now University. And Danny and I try to do a podcast every week. And then Danny goes through those podcasts, about an hour long, and she picks out like 5 or 10-minute clips on topics, and she makes cool little thumbnails and stuff, and we upload those. So there's like a whole episode we did with Jenna, my assistant, and all the different roles that she does and how she trained and what she did before and how we found her and kind of all that stuff. So super helpful stuff inside of there. Move Now University is the YouTube channel. All right. So Jenna sends me all this stuff. So notice what she's sending me. She's sending me a recommendation card. This is a internal document that we designed. And then if you see there, it says Brad has Blue Cross insurance. He's met his $350 deductible for plan year. He's covered at $85.15. So it's all spelled out. So I know exactly what's going on, so I can handle any questions or potential objections that I get when I'm going through this with a patient. And then we go through the wellness score. So we have the wellness score. We have 21 different parameters that we use. This wellness score parameter set is also shared inside of Cash Practice as well. So this is available for all Cash Practice members if they want to see what our wellness score setup looks like, right, Miles?
I don't know if it's in there, but I think, is it?
Yeah. It's for the Move Now doctors. So it's not public, but if you ask for it, we'll let you.
Just ask
for it. You can check it out. There you go. Okay. I let the cat out of the bag. All right. Okay. And then we use this form. This is one that we've just used over the years. And the nice thing about this is how I used to do these virtual appointments is I used to flip a camera around and I would draw on this form on my desk, and I would draw through it. And then I realized I don't need to keep wasting these papers. I can just pull this up on my screen and draw on the screen. And I got pretty good at drawing with a mouse on the screen. So I go through and explain phases of care and how that works during the virtual appointment. And then again, you'll see we use more Cash Practice stuff. Really, like everything in Cash Practice, that like the wellness score, the care plan calculator. We do all of our auto debit and payment processing through it. And then we use the drip ed system, and we use the email automation tied into a whole other thing that we do with our patients called the 12-week transformation, which is an online portal we built for our patients, and they get email reminders every week to get them to log in and learn more content. So I believe we're utilizing most parts of Cash Practice, right?
You're using a lot of it.
You're using it. Yeah.
Okay.
So
okay.
that's the care. So there's your care plan right there, right?
Yeah. Yep. Here's the care plan. And so back to this virtual froth. So the patient watches the froth video prior, about 20 minutes. And then we cover the wellness score. We go through the phases of care. We go through the recommendations, which again is the care plan calculator. And how we've done it, and again, this is something that, I don't want to go off on a tangent on this, but how we've done it is we put the full fee and then we put next to it what theirs is, whether it's ChiroHealth USA or insurance or something like that. And that's just worked well for us as far as how we do it. I know that we've talked to you guys about this before, and there's some different ways people.
Yeah. I mean, generally you're showing them at the end of the day, you're showing them they're getting some type of savings by being on the care plan. How you demonstrate to the patient is personal preference, but ultimately at the end of the day, it's, hey, if you do our plan, it's going to save you some money. That's really what it kind of comes down to. How you word it, how you show it is really personal choice.
Cool. And then we confirm their next appointment. So, all right, Mary, and your next appointment is on tomorrow. I'll see you at 4:30. And then we email over all the documents that we just covered, the Zoom recording for the spouse. Of course, there's a lot of other details we do on this call. Like after we go through their care plan recommendation, just like on day 2 virtual, where I said one of the most important things is, how do you feel about this? I think one of the most important things about this is once you've gone through different financial options, you don't just leave it out there and don't say anything and just like keep your fingers crossed. So something that I've been in the habit of saying is do you feel like one of these options works well for you? Or I'll say, which one of these options do you feel works best for you? And then,
great question to ask. And
then they choose one and they start talking through it. Or they'll say, well, actually, I don't think any of these do. And I'll say, oh, well, I'm glad I asked the question. So where are you at? And then sometimes we have to work some kind of hybrid thing with them. And something that I totally attribute to Holly and Miles at a talk they did at our clinic when they came out and taught for our seminar, because there's seminars that we do for Move Now University, is they were just going through this, that Most people don't go and they pay for a car up front. Most people pay for something incrementally. They budget it monthly. And so it was something I really wanted to move into, instead of having mostly a 3-month phase of care and then having them pay for that financially, trying to future pace out and predict the future. So something that we've done now for probably, I don't know what, Danny, the last 6 months or something plus maybe, is, well, it's probably longer than that, is now Danny preps out the 3-month and a 15-month option. And so for everyone, when we run through this, we go through 3 months and 15 months. And the 15 months is really just phase 2 of care. Phase 1 is 3 months. That's more intensive. And then after 3 months in our practice, we do a lot of post checkup stuff, post x-ray, post movement assessment, that sort of thing. And then we try to predict out the next 12 months after that. And then the nice thing about that is, from a budgeting standpoint, patients can pay, a down payment and then a monthly payment, and they just do it auto debit throughout their whole care.
And what percentage would you say are choosing that longer option versus the shorter one?
I mean, it's probably like a third or a quarter of people choose the longer one. But here's the thing. The people who normally, if we never presented that, would say, I don't have an option that works for me, they might not do care. And they will choose the longer option to get a lower monthly payment, and they'll commit to care that way.
That's what I wanted to hammer. For those of you who aren't kind of picking up what Todd's putting down here, in essence, by having the care longer, it's less money per month. The budget per month is less because you're spreading the payments out over a longer period of time. Now, granted, the 15-month program is more expensive overall. Right? There's more care in there. So it's overall the cost is higher. Double. It's double the price, right? And they're committing to it, not because it's more money, but because the monthly amount is more affordable. And that's something that he's referring to. We teach this all the time. In fact, one of the things we'll often teach is that if you present a care plan to a patient and they say exactly what just Todd said, is they can't afford that, as an example, what we teach you to do is go add more care in and spread it over a longer time. And that's in essence what Todd was doing here, is he's adding in more care, spreading it longer, and you'll have more people say yes to that versus saying no at all. So your experience, that's been your experience as well.
And I'll say that the whole experience that we take a patient through in their first couple of visits in office and through these virtual appointments, and a lot of it's through these virtual appointments, that education gives me the confidence to be able to easily say, well, here's what's going to happen after phase 1. And yes, I don't know every single detail of what's going to happen. I don't have that crystal ball, but I have a pretty good idea of probably how things are going to go. And so I can use that pretty good idea to future pace care to give you an additional financial option that a lot of our patients find to be really helpful. And that is boom. And then I show them that. And some people are like, yeah, I really like that. That's great. That's so awesome that you guys do that, because I'll present it. I'll say, this is an option that we offer where when patients choose this option, there's no additional fees. We're not charging interest. And so people like that. Now, granted, on the lesser version, if they want to do a single payment option, they can get a discount off of it. But the other option is not penalizing them and charging them more. It's just the same rate, but it spreads it out.
And you committed them for longer, and you're making more money. I mean, it's a win-win for everything. They're getting more the care they need to get the full results. Because I'm going to guess on occasion, there's someone who will finish the initial program and then for whatever reason choose not to go on to the next one. We all have that happen. That's not the point. You don't have to, worry. What I'm getting at is we all, as dealing with patients, have that happen on occasion where someone doesn't transition to the next program. So we've always been an advocate of, we believe, at least at Cash Practice, is do your best to get them onto a complete program. Even if there's no financial reason, like, because they can't afford it. We've just found that breaking it into phases, it may work, but we also find in a lot of cases, it's better just to commit them to the entire program. One, we all know that patients get better results when they go on to that next program. So we're just trying to eliminate, at least one of the principles we have at Cash Practice is we want to eliminate as many decisions the patient has to make as possible. So transitioning from an initial program to the next program is just one decision they have to make. Now, granted, in probably most cases, they're continuing on and completing it. But if we could remove that decision, why not do so? Absolutely. So it's just another viewpoint there.
Yep, absolutely. Yep, that's huge. So then day 4, which I'll keep super brief, but day 4 now is their third in-office visit. how we do it in office. We got a lot of moving parts because of our systems. This is where we use cash practice again. We're in the blue where it says 12-week transformation onboarding. That's giving them access to an online portal. They get a username, password. We built that through ClickFunnels. But there's an email automation that runs out that sends them 12 weeks of emails, and we do that through cash practice as well. And all of these pieces, just as a side note, me coming on, or I should say Danny and I coming on, even though I haven't given Danny a chance to say anything yet, which I should stop talking and let her say something at some point as well, is all the things I'm covering is stuff that in our program, Move Now University, Danny works with a ton of these clinics every single week, and she's helping them build all of these systems, duplicating them inside of their office as well. This is how we got started with this stuff. Is like step one was we built this stuff for us. And at first I was like, ooh, I don't want to share it with anyone. I want to keep it to myself. And then I got inspired from a friend of mine, Dr. Chad Woolner. He's the one that introduced me to ClickFunnels and all of that. He was doing a really cool program helping chiropractors with marketing. He inspired me to start sharing these systems with other chiropractors. We started Move Now University. We started teaching other doctors, how do you put functional rehab in an office? More importantly, how do you follow systems that actually work? And so it turned into really just systems, tons of systems. Cool thing is we happen to use Cash Practice quite a bit because it's a really awesome platform. And so that's why that synergy between Danny and I and Holly and Miles works, because we're promoting their stuff, but not for the sake of promoting it, but for the sake of, because it's the best thing we found out there and we use it on a daily basis. Okay.
Thanks for saying that. I'll clarify, and then let's give Danny an opportunity here, and we'll take as much time as we need here.
Cool.
And that is that email campaign. For any of you who are curious to take a look at that, if you go into your Drip Ed system, those of you who have it, and you go to the library, in the library, there's a copy of the 12-week the Move Now University email campaign in there. So you can get an idea what that.
Yeah, it's called the 12-week transformation.
And if anybody wants to reach out to you guys, let's go ahead and give it. I know you mentioned you wanted Danny's phone number or however you want to do that. Yeah. But before we do that, or as we do that, I know you wanted to give Danny an opportunity here, and I apologize, Danny, that I didn't call on you sooner. I'll leave it up to you, because Todd, you know specifically what Danny's contribution is. So I'll just turn it back to you.
Yeah. So I guess probably, so Danny's skill set is this. I've been in practice now going on 20 years, and we've had multiple office managers. And she is by far the absolute best office manager we've ever had by a long shot. She's gotten all of our staff to look at her like Mama Danny, like all of our staff absolutely loves her. She's no nonsense. She's got a bunch of kids herself. So she definitely knows how to do this at home. And Danny's also extremely organized, systematic, step-by-step. And so she's just helped take everything in our clinic to the place that I want to take it. And she started off helping us with Move Now, kind of turned into this hybrid office manager. It's another thing that we do is hybrid office manager. It's a whole other episode that we could do with you guys. We could teach about how she is at home 85% of the time in what she does for the clinic, and has built checklists for the staff, and the staff goes through and they kind of manage themselves. All right. So
let me ask you this. Let me jump in for a second, if you don't mind.
Absolutely.
I know you're a rock star, Danny. I know, because Todd wouldn't be successful without a Danny, just like I wouldn't be successful without a Holly. There's just no way. And let me ask you this, speaking specific to the topic of these virtual reports, can you just speak to it, just whatever comes to mind in regards to either your role or its impact on patients or interacting with patients? Like, because what I want to shoot for here is, we got through mechanics of all this stuff, and let's get through some of the benefits. What have you seen both benefiting the office, your job, the patient's experience? Like, what are some of the benefits you've seen?
Yeah, so some of the benefits that I have seen with this is patients are getting this information in the comfort of their own homes. So it's a lot easier for them to absorb what Dr. Todd is saying and what Dr. Todd is presenting to them. because they're not feeling that pressure of, number one, being in a quote unquote doctor's office, and there's not other patients waiting in the waiting room. They don't feel rushed, and it's more personable for the patient. So I have seen that our conversion rates have gone up since we've started doing these virtual appointments, and the patients have been getting the information that they need. If they forget about something that they talked about, they can go back and view the videos that Dr. Todd sends over to them. So definitely our conversion rates have gone up. I feel like it builds a better relationship between the patient and Dr. Todd, because they are so one-on-one, and those walls come down because they're both at the comfort of their own home. And so I feel it establishes a better relationship with Dr. Todd and the patient. That's what I've seen as far as all of that goes with the mechanics and doing virtual appointments. As far as my role with the virtual appointments, I prepare the emails to send to Dr. Todd for his formal report of findings, the financial aspect of things. I build that email and I send it to him as if he were going to read that email to the patient. I paint the picture for him, exactly what situation this patient is in. I try and word it so that way he can literally read my sentences to the patient to explain their situation, what they're going to be doing, how the care plan is broken down. And so that's my role and my feedback on these virtual appointments.
Danny, do you find that you personally, as a career or as a job, whatever you want to refer to it as, are you getting more joy out of working?
Yes,
do you find less
absolutely.
stress? Do you find like, because one of the things we often hear from doctors when they're sharing their challenges is turnover of staff, unhappy staff, that type of thing. And we're always striving not just to make the patient's experience better, but to make the office team's experience better, to have more joy and all those things. Because we know, just like I just kind of said, there's no way I'm succeeding without a Holly, and there's no way Todd's succeeding without a Danny. Like, having a strong, happy, career-oriented person backing us up is vital to all of our successes. So we're always looking at how do we make it a better experience for our team. And I'm just curious, in the virtual report side of things, I know cash practice makes your life better. I know that for a fact. But for the standpoint of the virtual report stuff, speak to that for a moment.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So any front desk person knows that when you've got people up front waiting, it gets stressful. They're staring at you, all eyes are on you. They're like, what's going on? Now that we've taken these longer appointments out of the office and we're doing them early mornings before the patient comes in for their appointment later that day, the pressure is off the front office staff, having the patient staring at them, waiting to go back to an adjusting room, waiting to see Dr. Todd. So definitely that pressure is off of the front desk. So they are so relieved that these longer appointments are done outside of our office hours. And the feedback from Dr. Todd after these virtual appointments to our staff members gives them all the information that they need by the time that patient walks through the front door. So we don't have to ask the patients, so how did it go? What did you decide on? We already know. And we start the conversation off with, hey, I heard your appointment with Dr. Todd went amazing this morning. He mentioned that this is the option that you're going to choose. Let's go ahead and get that taken care of. We'll get you your journal, send you back. It just makes it so much easier because we have all that information hours ahead of time before that patient comes in for their next appointment.
I'm so impressed with everything you guys are saying. And I'll just share, Holly knows this, back when I was in practice, I thought we were doing things efficiently. Like, we had special time set aside for new patients to report of findings outside of adjusting hours, but they were still in person. So I would come in early in the morning. I would do all my day ones and day twos, adjust for a few hours. And then I had a window of a couple hours where I would see new patients or report of findings. And then, so we organized it, and that was extremely efficient. But you've taken it to the next level. I could actually see doing that same kind of schedule pretty much that we used to do, but just simply being at home instead of in the office for those times. Because I used to jokingly say, when I was done adjusting at 10 a.m. and I didn't start adjusting again till 4 p.m, and all that time in between would have been new patients or report of findings. If there wasn't any scheduled, then I was, off surfing or going off and enjoying myself in the afternoon between 10 and 4 p.m. So, but I could see if I was at home, like, okay, that's even better, right? If I'm at home, that's whenever I go to the gym or go to the beach or whatever, but
or put on your fat pants and just,
yeah, that too. But the point is that, again, these efficiencies, it gives you a lot of freedom and flexibility. Because I imagine, Todd, there are going to be days where you do not have a day one or day two, or, you don't have these virtual reports scheduled. I'm going to guess occasionally that happens. And that just means you have freedom of time. You're not sitting in your office twiddling your thumbs. And so many doctors I talk to, when they don't have an organized schedule, they never can leave the office. They literally can never leave because everything is just kind of happening when they just take people whenever they call in. There's no system to the way they see people. So hats off to you for taking it to the next level, or the next level, because I'm still super impressed by it. Holly, I want to go to you for a second. And Danny, thank you for sharing. That was really valuable. And I wanted people to hear from a CA, office manager, assistant's perspective of how this impacts. It's not just, it's better for the doctor. It's not just better for the patients. It's also better for the team as well. Holly, do you want to have any closing words before we kind of wrap up here?
Well, we're getting asked, how do people reach out to you guys if they have questions? If they want to know
have
more
a slide
about
on
this
that
now.
Yeah.
And while you're pulling that up, I posted in the chat your YouTube channel. I have learned a lot from your YouTube channel. You guys also talk about this topic of the virtual day 2 and 3. And one thing in your podcast that you said on your YouTube channel was that how convenient it is, not only for the patient, but for your entire office, the doctor, the staff, everybody, because you guys can solely focus on patient care and education. You're not bogged down with everything else that's going on in the day 2 and day 3 process, and that, patients are really enjoying it because, and Dr. Todd's not getting held up because there's questions. So the flow in the office is really beautiful.
I'll just say, I when I meet doctors and I meet people, I try to learn what their strengths are, and Todd's superpower is systems. It really is. And I'm a systems person myself. I come from you guys know I have an engineering background. Obviously, we develop cash practice. It's all about systems and organizing things and be efficient. And Todd's superpower is that. It is definitely systems and proceduralizing things. And it doesn't necessarily mean, listen, if you're into wanting to do exactly what Todd does in his practice from a clinical standpoint, more power to you. If you're not, and you're just wanting to continue doing what you're doing clinically, but you just want to improve systems, again, look at Todd's stuff. It's just really thought out. It's very well thought out from the standpoint of all the I's are dotted, T's are crossed from the standpoint of system. If you're running around your practice with your hair on fire, then the solution to that is get clarity around your systems. Make sure you reach out. Is there anything you wanted to end up with, Todd, before we kind of wrap up?
I have like a 20-second little clip that I try to find of a patient giving their feedback after going through a virtual appointment. So that's what this is real quick. So it's like 20 seconds if you want to hear it. I have the audio synced up here. So
Do it.
Todd, we can't hear it. If you want to do this, stop sharing your screen.
But I guess you choose a lot because a lot of information that it was presented. Thank you.
Oh, well, thank you for saying that. No, well, this is the 4th one I've done this morning. So, and it's like,
yeah. So anyway, she said, something like, that was really helpful. That was really great. That's super impressive. It's a lot of information. It was really helpful. And, this woman, she's in her 70s. So it's like someone who's older is not necessarily overwhelmed by thorough information. If it's presented in a way that's methodical and easy to understand, you can get a lot across and they can absorb a lot. And then they don't have that feedback or that feeling of overwhelm. That's what I think a lot of chiropractors think is going to happen when they introduce systems. Oh, it's too much. It's just too much stuff. It's going to overwhelm patients. And it's really just, no, you just eat the elephant one step at a time or one bite at a time. There's the phone number to reach out to Danny. If I didn't leave it up there long enough, you could just shoot her a text. And like I said to everyone, your interest in this is going to motivate me to move this up to the top of my list as far as finishing building it out. Cause I haven't finished building it out yet. There's some training videos Danny and I did, but the goal with everything we do is to make it turnkey and get people to be able to actually implement it. So it's not just something where it's like an online program that, you sign up for and you put it on the shelf to collect dust. It's something that if you're really interested in doing this, Danny and I will help you get it rolling so that you can look back and say, yeah, I used to do this stuff in office. Now I can benefit from all these things that these guys just talked about for the last hour as well. I mean, it really is great. I will never go back to doing it in person. Like, I'm going to say that as a definitive, or at least don't want to.
I don't blame you. The fact that you were able to do one while you're on vacation for 30 minutes, that's the power of Zoom. And we'll wrap up here. I was invited to be a speaker, just like you're speaking here. I was invited to speak on another coaches program about a month or so ago. And I happened to be on vacation in Knoxville, Tennessee. And so while I was there, I got a conference room, I got my laptop, and I was able to do my presentation from the hotel, conference room versus, being at home or so. So that's the beauty of this online world, is it gives you the flexibility to have freedom in your life and, freedom of time, freedom of where you are in space, I guess you would say, and be able to participate. So I thank you guys all for being here. And thanks again for Todd, Danny, thank you for taking time out of your day to be with us with the Cash Practice team and the Cash Practice members. And we look forward to seeing you guys. We'll be back. Holly, you want to let everybody know the date?
2 weeks. So we're here on the 2nd and 4th Tuesday of every month at 10 a.m. Pacific. We're going to see you guys on Tuesday, March 14th. So thank you so much for joining us today. Dr. Dodd, Danny, much love to you guys. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having
us.
us.
See you all soon. Bye-bye.
All right.
Bye.
See ya.